Correct, correct. Fresh off the grill. Chicken King.
How much is going for?
Pardon me?
How much is going for?
1,000. Gun get ready. Don't piece of if you like the gun going wide.
What up, people? Welcome back to my channel.
Oh, this is my day. I'm ready to take it on, come what may.
So right now we're doing the final analysis of Mashramani 2019, and what I'm about to do is to examine the coordination of events. Not only about where the people came, where they congregated, where the spectators were, but also about where the food vendors were in relation to where the people were. And to make that analysis, what I'm going to do is show you what is happening in Jubilee Park. So this is Jubilee Park on MASH Day, Saturday 23rd of February 2019, and this is where the float parade ends. So most of the floats eventually come through the gates here, make a round around the park, Jubilee Park, where they're judged by these judges who are on stages and basically looking at various aspects of the float. But what surprises me about this arrangement is, first of all, this is Jubilee Park. This is a controversial park that was built by the new administration, the PNC RAFC coalition government. And the controversy was about the use of this land space. A lot of people, including me, thought this should remain green space. I thought this should have been a good place to have a golf course. You know, a lot of green space, maybe a 9-hole course, a lot of lawns and trees and so on. A couple of hazards, maybe a little pond or lake or something. However, the political people of the time thought it best to build this huge park, this huge Jubilee Park monstrosity. And I say monstrosity because the quality of the facility is really not in keeping with stadiums in the 21st century, right? It's not like you know, the Staples Center in Los Angeles, California. You know, it's not like some major venue for sports. It's just this big area surrounded by stands, these wooden stands that we've been building since the 1970s. However, that aside, it turns out that this arrangement, or this Jubilee Park, is useful for events like this, national events where you need a large crowd in a location. So it's basically a political space more than anything else. And in this case, it is the place where most Guyanese with families tend to gather on MASH Day, because if you have kids, you don't want to have them standing on the side of the road waiting for the floats, because they can't really see over the shoulders of, you know, all these people who are also lining the streets. So the best place if you have kids is to put them up high in the stands where they can look out onto the float parade, which eventually passes through, at the end of its course, through the Jubilee Park. So here is my first observation. First is that the capacity of this stadium must be at least about 5,000, and I would say that about 75% of those stalls were filled. As you go around, you're going to see that most of the stalls were filled, except at the back end, which was far away from the action. You know, most of those stalls were filled, and people are even on the area in the space in front of these stands. The second thing to note is that there are no vendors, there are no food vendors in this area. You would think that the most ideal location for a food vendor would be to be where the people are. But instead, we have a mismatch of supply and demand here. And so there's poor coordination of the logistics of the food vendors and the crowds, particularly the children who will drive some of the food purchases that these people will make. You know, kids get hungry all the time and they want food. And so as a food vendor, this is where you need to be. So a word to the organizers: when you plan Mashramani 2020, it's very important that you put designated space in Jubilee Park for food vendors. I would say put them on the outside and the back side of these stands, like underneath. You need to cover that space underneath and create stalls or booths so that people can prepare their food and sell it out of the back end on the other side of these stalls all around the park. You have space for maybe a couple of hundred stalls if you did it that way. Instead, what you have right now is a situation where the food vendors are lining the streets of the city, usually along Irving Street. You know, there are all these barbecue stalls set up along Irving Street. And I don't know if it provides food for the people who are out there for the party events after the floats passed, after the float parade. But what happens to all these people who are sitting here in the stands without food? Now, there are a few vendors walking around with baskets or push carts selling food to these people, but the bulk of the food is out there on the streets when it should be here. And so from an economic point of view, I think there's a mismatch between the supply and demand. This is where the people are. This is where the food vendors should be located. And for future Mashramani float parades, this arrangement has to be made. You have to create space here for the food vendors along with the people sitting in the stalls. And I hope people are listening who plan these events in future. And finally, what you need to do with this place is to have it organized so that the events like the duck curry competition. So one of the major food events during this season is the duck curry competition. And it's held on another day. And some of the other events like the folk festival also held on another day. The organizers should arrange for those events to be held on a day like today in the Jubilee Park area, in fact in the center of the park, because for the majority of the day, like up until like 3 p.m. in the afternoon, no floats have arrived in Jubilee Park. The floats tend to come late in the afternoon, like between 3 and 6 p.m. So for the entire day, this area is vacant, are not being utilized, but the stands are filled with people. So the best way to utilize the crowd that's there is to have your duck curry competition inside this space, have all the vendors fill up that space with the food stalls, make it a cultural food show during the major part of the day, and then you have the crowd that should be there for these events, like the duck curry competition and all the other competitions that you have specifically to celebrate the culture of Guyana. You could probably have a MetMG competition. You could probably have a pepper pot competition, a curry duck and 7 curry competition. All these things that are Guyanese and food related should be held in this space to take advantage of the crowd of people that usually congregate here for Mashramani. So guys, that's what happened in Jubilee Park on MASH Day, MASH 2019. And here again you can see why I said that the attendance at MASH 2019 was in excess of 100,000 people, because if you watch to the end of this video, you'll see what I'm talking about, that the stands here were mostly filled, and this must be at least 4,000 to 5,000 people in this area alone. And you multiply that by about 25 to get the total population that showed up for MASH Day. If you want to see more content like this, click like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you think about MASH 2019 and what you think should happen for MASH 2020. What you'd like to see specifically featured in these videos. And share this video with friends and family around the world. Later!
the Georgetown Princess. Triple A China, DDL, Answer Baton, Photo Tropical 94.1, 93.